Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? All right, so my name is Lindsay Coleman. I am here to talk to you about 5 technical tips to help you with your virtual classes. Let me just make sure that we're live here, yeah? Got to make sure that we're live. Hey, it's telling me a reminder. I think we're live in here. I don't know. I can't actually see it. You never know, you know? Event, power music. Well, I'm going to hope that I'm live. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Alrighty. So, hello, welcome. Thank you for being here. Again, like I said, my name is Lindsay Coleman. I am a longtime fitness professional and group fitness instructor, and I am a musician. I have a master's degree in music. So, sound is kind of what I do. Um, just because a lot of you probably don't know who I am and you're wondering why it is that I particularly am on here to talk to you live with Power Music. So again, I'm a longtime fitness professional and professional musician, and for a long time I was a master trainer with Beachbody Live, which no longer exists. So I was there till the end. But in Beachbody Live, we did a ton of virtual instructor trainings, and I was in the first group of master trainers that got to do that. And so I was kind of part of the group that got to fail forward with virtual teaching fitness. And because of my musical background, it became very apparent to me that I needed to figure out the tech of teaching online in teaching beat-based formats, meaning formats that go to a beat and that follow the rhythm of the music, and how important that was to me to be able to do that. Because if you're trying to teach an 8 count online, you need to make sure that you are locked in. And so that's kind of what happened to me, is that I realized that I had to be able to do this and be able to do it effectively. And so I have a little bit of an edge in that my husband's a software engineer and helped me a lot with the technology. But then I just started to learn and to grow. And over the last, 4 years now, I have kind of learned the tricks on how to teach online and make it sound as optimal as possible. At near the end of Beachbody, I was actually the top virtual master trainer, so I trained more people than any other master trainer virtually. Part of the reason for that was because I had the tech figured out. All right, so let's talk about some of my tips. And the tips that I want to give you today are coming from a business that I run called PickFit Pro. And PickFit Pro happened after coronavirus happened, and I started getting messages after message after message on how to set up technically, because people knew that I knew how to do this. And so I started getting so many questions that I started a business, PickFit Pro, which is basically a consulting business on how to set up your stuff. Because it's one thing for me to give you tips, and some people can take those tips and run with them and be able to set up perfectly, but some people can't, right? And so I set up consulting so I could do one-on-one consulting with people. And I noticed that there were a lot of questions that came up time after time. So the reason that I made these 5 tips is they're directly from hundreds of people's questions on how to set up virtually. And so I'm using the 5 questions that I get the most and giving you tips on how to navigate that space. All right, so let me bring up my notes here because I need my notes. Yes. So first of all, the number one question that I get as a technical consultant, I'll say, is what equipment do I need? And the reality is, before you can answer that question, you have to answer, what's my commitment? And what I mean by that is that when you're first getting into teaching virtually, you have to decide on a few things before you can even start. And one of them is, do I have the time and the space to be able to do this? Meaning that you have to understand that anytime you do something new, it's not just as easy as one, two, three. You have to actually make a commitment to it, and you have to be okay with maybe making some mistakes before you start. So that's the number one question, because sometimes people answer that question and they say, no. Like, no, I don't actually have the time or the space to commit to this. And so I don't want to learn how to do this. And so I want to make sure that, you answer that question honestly before you even start this. The second question, if you answer that question yes, is how much are you willing to invest in terms of both money and time? And that's because sometimes you can teach virtually for very inexpensively, and sometimes you're going to teach virtually for not so inexpensively, meaning that if you really want, like if you're a virtual studio, or if you're wanting to do this as a business, or maybe you are a fitness studio and you need to take the whole thing online, you're probably going to have to invest a little bit more money in order to make it look and sound really professional. Versus if you're doing this because you miss your live classes, or maybe like a couple of friends really want to do this with you, then you could totally get away with doing this very inexpensively streaming on Facebook. So there's different levels, and I want you to kind of figure out which one that is for you in order to make the best decisions on what equipment that you need. And number 3 is, what are my limitations? Meaning, money, is money a limitation? Is insurance a limitation? Is the music a limitation? Is technology a limitation? Is your space a limitation? And what are your participants' needs? Because once you answer those questions, you have a better idea of where you need to move forward. And then I'll let you kind of know what my general consensus is after people answer these questions. And if you were to do a consultation with me, I would have these questions be answered first so that I could give you some tailored advice. But this is my general advice. So if you're a beginner, I highly recommend Facebook or Instagram. And the reason for that is because you can stream from your phone with an external music source, and the original sound on Facebook and Instagram sounds quite good. Meaning that if it's just music that is playing externally from a speaker plus your voice, it's usually going to sound okay. Now, we'll get to this later, but anytime you add a mic into the equation, it's going to sound a million times better. But just know that you can do it on Facebook and Instagram. And as long as you do some test runs, which is another thing we'll get to later, you can find that great balance in order to make it happen so that you can have a good sound quality. So I highly recommend Facebook, Instagram for beginners. Now, if you are more intermediate, then I recommend Zoom or Facebook or YouTube with a streaming encoder. Now, the equipment that you need for Zoom versus a streaming encoder are very, very similar. And so if you buy equipment for one, you can use it with another. It's not like you have to be married to a platform. But it is a more intermediate space because, again, if you answered that question, yes, I think that I can invest a little money into this. That means you're going to have to get an adapter. You're going to have to get, maybe a mixer, depending on what you're trying to do. And we'll go over some of the more specifics of that a little later. But that's a more intermediate space. So you can think more about Zoom encoders, making it look and sound a little bit more professional when you're there. Now, if you really, really want to get into a more professional space, then that's when you're talking about maybe getting a website and streaming everything from a website so it's completely independent of a different platform, or that maybe you are streaming on one of the more prolific softwares that allows you to stream to different places like Streamcast, or Chromecast, all these things at different places at different times. And again, that requires more of an investment because then you're adding in more software, more investments throughout. And so again, you have to answer those 3 questions that I gave you first. What is your commitment to this? How much time and money are you willing to spend on it? And what do you really want to do, right? What are you trying to do for your participants? Because this isn't really for you. Most of the people that are on Power Music are fitness instructors, so it's not for you. It's for them. And so you also have to answer what are their limitations? Like maybe if you're teaching a more senior crowd, you might want to go to the intermediate level so that you can see your people on Zoom. Maybe if you are, wanting to stream to a bunch more people, you're going to have to get to that website level in order to make it look really professional. So again, you have to answer those questions before you can answer what equipment do I need. Now, to answer that question after you have kind of thought about that, I say, in my professional opinion, I think that everyone needs a microphone. And you see that I have a microphone on right now, and it's because it pinpoints the sound. It makes it much more focused. I happen to have small children, and so if they run in here and start talking to me, you actually can't hear it because they're not speaking through the microphone. So it completely cuts back on external noise, and it makes your participants be able to hear you better. So even if you're going externally or internally for sound, if you having a microphone is going to make a huge difference in the quality of the sound and what they can hear. Now, if you are doing external sound, da, 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 if you're doing external sound, then you're going to have, sorry, I'm getting on here so I can actually see your comments. There we go. Hi, hi, hi. Oh, let me go ahead and turn that off so that you don't have to hear that. Hey, Michelle, how you doing, girl? Boop, boop, boop. So when you're doing external sound, anytime you have a microphone, again, it's going to sound better. If you have an internal sound, it's going to sound better. But if you're doing internal, that means you're also going to need an adapter. And I've got a couple of my cast of characters over here. I've got this big spread. I'm like Fitness Mary Poppins. I just can pull out these technology things. But you're going to need an adapter. And anytime you add a microphone that goes to a computer, you're going to need something with a USB to connect to your computer. Back in the day when computers were older, you could use an aux, right? And I'm showing you the aux now. So when computers were a little older, you could have used an aux. And if you have like a 2010 computer, you might be able to use an aux because you might have a separate aux port for both mic and headphones. But most modern computers recognize an aux as a headphone. So even if you try and put a headphone in, I know a lot of people have this mic. Yes, it's this little receiver mic. They try and put this into the computer directly and it doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because your computer doesn't recognize it as a microphone. It thinks it's a headphone, so it doesn't make any sound. So you always have to have an adapter. And in today's technology, if you have a more modern computer, which most of us do, because I'm talking like you have to have a dinosaur computer in order for this not to be an issue. You need a USB. Now, this little guy right here, and I will let you know that I am going to post my equipment recommendation list in this group, and Power will send it to you, or maybe I misspoke. Sorry, Andrea, Ali, maybe you won't send it, but it'll be in the group, yes. But this is one of the things that I recommend. It's a Sabrent USB adapter. It is cheap, like not a lot of money at all. I can't remember exactly how much it is. I think it's like $12. But super cheap and you can get it and it works super well with most computers. I've worked with both PCs and Macs, and it works well. You put it into your USB port, and then you'll see on the other edge, it has this splitter. And so one of them is for your microphone and one of them is for a headset. And so what it does is that it makes your computer recognize your microphone as a microphone. So that means if you have one of these little tiny microphones like this, you can just plug this thing right in. Boom, now we have it attached to the computer. And this is a huge deal. Again, once you get your microphone into your computer, the world opens up for you. But those are the two pieces of equipment that I say like everybody probably needs if you're teaching virtually is a microphone. Even if you're not trying to connect it to your computer, get a microphone. And number two is an adapter if you are trying to connect it to your computer because it's going to make your life so much easier. Now, this is a cheap adapter. Is it the only adapter you can use? No, there are tons of adapters that you can use in order to make this happen. My personal favorite, the one that I use the most, is an iRig. This iRig, oh, let's see, don't get caught on my microphones. I have like 7 out. So I use the iRig HD2. HD2. So if you're just listening and you're not going to go to my equipment list, make sure not to get the iRig 2. That is a totally separate product. It does not work. The iRig HD2, yes. I use this, and that's actually what's connecting my microphone to the computer right now. I have this 1/4 inch cable that goes from the iRig into my actual microphone, and it's a more professional microphone, right? And so I will let you know, the more professional you go, the more expensive your equipment's going to be. And that's just the rule of technology in general, right? Like typically you get what you pay for with technology. And so you're going to get a little bit more nuance with your sound if you go a little higher. Besides the iRig, I know that there are mixers. The Scarlett Solo is a popular one. The Behringer USB one is a popular one. And the more channels you have, the more variability that you'll have. But if you're just looking for the cheapest way to get your computer connect or your mic connected to your computer, USB adapter, cheapy little mic. These are these mics. I bought one just as a literally to help people because so many people had this. They're like $30. So that's like what, $40 to get you connected to the computer? Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Hi. Hi. Hi, Kelsey. Hi, Allie. Hi. Hi, Elena. Okay, so that's what equipment I always think you need is a microphone and adapter, but you also need an external speaker. And the reason you need an external speaker is one of the other questions that I get most frequently is how do I hear myself better? So what happens is people get their microphone connected to their computer. Maybe they're doing Zoom, maybe they're doing Facebook, whichever, right? But if you're, especially if you're doing Zoom and you're sharing your audio, which I'm going to show you how to do in a second, and you're sharing your audio, a lot of times you have to turn your volume way, way down. And by turning your volume way, way down, all of a sudden you can't hear it. And that's because when you're sharing any sound internally, it comes to them like it's external. So it's lava, fire, hot. And so I always recommend an external speaker that has an aux input. So not a Bluetooth, because Bluetooth creates all sorts of problems. Anytime you take something into the air, it's going to create a problem. So an aux input that you plug directly from your computer or your iPod or whatever that you're using for your phone, and then put it into the speaker so that you can control that volume on your end. So again, if I had to get everybody out of here in the most cheap way possible, I would say if you want to get to that intermediate level, you can teach on Zoom. You get your microphone connected with an adapter and you have an external speaker that has an aux input, which means you're also going to need an aux cable. And if you don't know what an aux cable looks like, that means that you haven't been teaching for that long. I used to talk to those people. I'd be like, oh, an aux cable. And everybody knew what that was, you know, like, because like 16 years ago when I was teaching, like we didn't even have aux cables. We were using CDs, right? But then everybody had an aux cable, and this is what this is. But nowadays, some people don't have an aux cable because they use Bluetooth. I'm telling you, don't use Bluetooth ever when teaching online. So this is an aux cable, and you just use a speaker that connects straight from an aux into the aux of whatever device that you're playing music, whether that's your computer or your iPad or your iPhone or whatever other people use. I kind of speak in Apple. My husband used to work for Apple, and so I'm always like, your iPad, your MacBook, everything in Apple speak. Um, yeah, sure, Lindsay. I will get to that in a little bit. Yeah. So, not me, Lindsay, a different Lindsay. So that is another thing about technology, again, is that the equipment that you need definitely depends on your level. And so you have to do your level and then get comfortable with being uncomfortable with technology. So the third question that I get very, very often with Zoom is how do I share my audio? And sharing your audio actually is very, very simple through Zoom. And I'm actually going to show you a video of me explaining it because with Zoom, it's actually you can't share your screen and show Zoom. So I'm going to share a video of me explaining how to share your audio. It's about 30 seconds long. And so that you can see how you share your audio on Zoom. I'm going to do it right here because I'm trying to give you some practical tips so you can actually go here and be like, okay, maybe I can set this up. All right, let's do this. Share. Okay, I've got all this stuff on my computer. Let's go. PicFit Pro. I got my videos, and here's computer sound. All right. So hopefully you guys can see this. I'm going to turn this down because it's going to come in hot. It's going to come in hot, team. All right. And let me show you how to share your computer sound.
Here's how you share your audio from a Zoom meeting. As you can see, the meeting is open and then go to the Share tab in the bottom corner, and then to the Advanced tab from Share. Then click on Computer Sound Only and press Share. You're going to see that they have the same things as if you were sharing your screen, so you can stop the share up there. And then you can open up iTunes or any other media player, and it'll play to them as if it is playing through their own computer, because all they can hear is the computer sound, which makes it nice and clear.
Okay, so that's how you share your sound. It's literally as simple as going to share screen, the advanced tab, and then sharing your computer. Now, I will let you know that you do need to control things through apps, which means that if you're sharing your computer or your sound through iTunes or Power Music or Spotify or whatever it is that you're using, you need to turn the actual app very, very low because it comes in really, really hot for your participants. And I'm on Zoom right now. I'm on Zoom streaming to Facebook. So I want to show you what it actually sounds like when I share my sound. So I'm going to share that right now so that you can see. And I'm using a virtual mix from Power Music in order to share this with you. Power Music does have a ton of wonderful virtual mixes. So if you haven't checked them out, you definitely should. Because a lot of times, I'm not going to lie, a lot of times virtual music is not so great. It's not so great, but Power Music's virtual music is actually quite good. So let me show you. So you hear that music crystal clear, right? That music is coming through. Now I have a microphone on so you can still hear me. If I didn't have a microphone on, you would not be able to still hear me. So I'm just letting you know, microphone, that's why I said very, very important. All right, I'm grooving, but I'll stop grooving so that you can not hear that. Okay, so that's actually what it sounds like. So again, that's one of the most frequent questions I get. So of the 5 questions that I get most frequently, we have answered what equipment I need, which I know is a very nuanced answer, how to set up a microphone to a computer, and how do I share my audio through Zoom. Now, and also how to hear yourself better for an external speaker. So my number 5 is probably the most lengthy tip, and it's the most advanced, but I get it a lot, and it's because people want to use their phone for their music instead of their computer for their music. And so, like you just saw in Zoom, it's very easy to use computer music. And I will let you know that when you subscribe to Power Music, you do get virtual music for free in a Dropbox. So if you need virtual music, you can ask for the Dropbox and they will give that to you for free so that you can download it on your computer, because they realize that oftentimes with virtual streaming, you have to have it on your computer in order to optimize the sound. Now, that being said, there is a way to use your app. And it's complicated, and I have a video that I'm going to drop in the comments after this is over. It's like a 4-minute video, so I don't want to play it for you right now, but I have a video that I'm going to drop in the comments that shows you how I do it, but it is most certainly not the only way to do it. And what I do is I use, again, an adapter. And when you use an adapter that is a little bit bigger, so that means that you're using a mixer, or I use the iRig because it's super compact, and so I like that there's not a million dials on this and that it's just like plug, 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 and that's how I use it. But you can use a mixer, you can use an iRig HD2, and there's lots of different things that you can use. But what you basically need is something with multiple channels. So you see I have this channel here, and that's where my phone is going in. Not my phone, my microphone. And then there's this other one right here. And this is where I'm plugging in a source so that I can actually use my phone instead of my computer. Now, I'll let you know, I don't love the way this sounds on Zoom. I think Zoom is really meant for meetings and for one vocal track. And so when I put a mixer in through Zoom, and I've done this with a couple clients too, I don't love the sound. I think it sounds better if you share your music directly from the computer. So I'm going to give you that disclaimer first. But you absolutely can do it. And so, like, if you're trying to share to Facebook with your phone or to other places, you can do this with this device, and it works really well, or with the mixer. And so you plug it in to one side of a mixer, And then you have to get it to whatever your source is. So right here, it's going to go, the most simple way I can explain it is to an aux, but it's not that simple. So with the aux, right here, and this is one of the questions I got in the comments of what questions, and it's also a question I get all the time. So with the aux, you have to split it. And so what I have this connected to is actually a headphone splitter. And a headphone splitter is different than the headphone mic splitter that we talked about earlier. This just gets sound to two separate places. So like if you think about like we had this technology in the 90s, right? Where you were like, on the plane and you wanted to split your headphones with your sister so you could jam to your CD player, you know what I'm talking about? So like we had this technology already. Um, and we have this headphone splitter. Now, run the headphone splitter. I have one connected to the iRig, so from a 1/4, but this is a different cable for whatever you're using. You just need a 2-channel adapter, basically. But I have one connected to the iRig, and then I have another one that's going to connect to an aux cable, this little thing that I talked about earlier, and I connect that to my speaker so that I can hear it. And the reason for that is because if you just connect it through the mixer, but you don't have it connected to an external speaker for you, they can hear it, but you can't hear it, which obviously is a big problem when you're teaching fitness. So that's what the whole headphone adapter or the headphone splitter is for. But then you can actually play music from your phone, which makes it really nice because that means that you can use your Power Music app, which a lot of people like to do because that Power Music app has all of those different features, right? You can make the playlist, you can change the BPM, you can mix and match things so much easier on that app. And so for me personally, I kind of go back and forth between computer and phone depending on what I'm using. If I'm teaching on Zoom, I almost always use my computer because, like I said, I personally think the sound quality is better if you're using your computer. If I'm teaching on Facebook, I use my adapter so that I can teach it all from my phone, and then the mic and the music are all coming through from the phone. Alrighty, so I know that this is a lot, right? I know that some of you are like, I didn't understand a word that she just said, and that's something that I want to talk to you about. Is that you have to realize that technology is fluid. I am giving you suggestions and what I know works. But that doesn't mean that it's A, going to work perfectly for you and your setup, and B, that it's not going to change at some point because technology always changes. And especially in a time right now where we have so many things going on, and because of COVID, the virtual space is expanding more rapidly than it ever has before. you know, some piece of technology that I use today could be obsolete tomorrow. And so you have to be okay with things changing and growing and not feeling like, okay, I got it figured out and that's the last I'll ever have to figure it out. Because that's not true. I'm always learning, adapting, growing, buying new equipment, finding different ways to make it better for my participants. And that's what we do as instructors, too, right? You have to learn, you have to grow, you have to adapt, you have to make sure that you're constantly improving what you do so that you can improve what they do. And I want you to think of technology in that exact same way that you would think about improving for your classes. All right. So Lindsay, I know I will show the video. Yes, I will put both videos, the video that is more a lengthy explanation of the equipment that I use, and I will drop the video of how to share your sound. Absolutely. I'll drop any video that I even mentioned in this in the comments below. Now, Lindsay, you asked about how you talk about posting to Facebook. And with Facebook, if you're posting, I can't actually show you because I'm on my computer. And so if I tried to go live because I'm already live, it wouldn't work. But when you're done with your video on Facebook, there are two different buttons. One of them is delete and the other one is share. And you always want to press share. And if you press share, then that video should be saved on Facebook directly. If it's not, if you're pressing share and it's not being saved to Facebook, that probably means there's some sort of glitch in your actual Facebook app, and I would recommend updating the Facebook app because it will share. Sometimes it doesn't share automatically, especially depending on how long the video is, but it should share completely. All right, let's see. No, Cat. No, I won't be sharing my tips in writing. This is a video webinar, and so I will be sharing my videos that I made, and then I'll also be sharing my equipment list that I use. And in the equipment list, it explains a lot of what I've been talking about, right? So like in the equipment list, it basically gives all of the different items that I've used or I've had other people use and that have been successful. And then it also says like who is this for, who is it not for, what to use it for. I will not write out like technology how tos. If and especially quite honestly, if people need individual help, that's when you go to the website. I linked that in the actual description of the live video, and that's pickfitpro.com. And I do one-on-one consultations. The problem with doing um, written instructions or even visual instructions for technology is that everybody's stuff is different. So somebody could say like I have this microphone and this adapter and this speaker, can you tell me how to set it up? And the answer is typically no unless you do a one-on-one consult with me, because just because you have those things, it doesn't mean that it's going to interact exactly like how it does on my computer or my phone with your technology, because it's all different. And people have to realize that too, that technology is different. Most things like a USB adapter is going to work on a computer. That's a standard, right? And the a microphone, if you get it through a USB, should be recognized by your computer. But the sound settings on a Mac versus a PC, and especially with so many different PCs out there, are going to be a little different. So I couldn't tell you that directly on how you would find sound settings. Okay. All righty. Anybody else have any hashtags? I'm not exactly sure what you mean, Lindsay, by hashtags. I mean, I know what a hashtag is, but what do you mean? What is it that you want to know about hashtags? I'm waiting. I know there's the delay between my live and you. Um, so again, those are my five best tips, and by five, I really should call it five most common questions. And just to recap, again, before you even start, assess your level of commitment. If you're more of a beginner, I suggest Facebook. If you're more intermediate, you can do Zoom or a stream encoder. We are not going to get into stream encoders today because that is a pretty complicated subject. If you are get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Which means that you're probably going to have to try out a few things before you find what actually works for you. If you're wanting minimum equipment, what you're going to need is a microphone and a USB adapter and an external speaker with an aux cord. That's minimum equipment. Um, Also, make sure that you are testing your equipment, yes, and that you're making sure that you're doing test runs before you do any sort of of live or virtual streaming, because that really helps. Before I came on today, I did several test runs to make sure that the sound was okay. And it also know that tech is fluid. Tech is always going to be fluid. You are going to have to figure out what works best for you. Now, again, we are lucky to live in a society where tech is always changing. Just like I said, Power Music gives you the Dropbox in order to be able to stream on your computer, which is a huge, huge thing. But you can also do it from the app on your phone if you're willing to invest in a few pieces of technology. And again, I will post my technology notes, yes, or I'll post my recommended equipment, and I'll post a few videos that are how-tos on how to get things running. Now, again, we I could talk about this for hours, right? I could do probably a whole like 3 hour seminar on how to talk about tech, because really we're talking about audio today, and we're talking about audio because this is with Power Music, and Power Music is a music company, so that is their primary focus. But there's lots of other considerations with live as well. I am not the only resource out there, but we do have some resources on the website. I know that and Michelle Park, who also works with Power Music, I know she has some great resources on some of her sites as well. And I know that if you just like basically Google or YouTube technical tips virtual teaching, you should be able to find other things too. So know that the information is out there. It's just up to you on whether or not you really want to commit and learn how to do it, because it will be a commitment. All right, let's see. Oh, that's a great question, Lindsay. Um, Yeah, so I you don't have to with the music. I'm not going to talk about licensing today because that's a different ball game completely. But you can absolutely give credit to the people, if you want to, say hashtag power music or at power music to show that you're using their music, they'll certainly highlight you. And so that's always fun too. But you don't need to, not for licensing reasons, you don't need to say what the music is. If there's a licensing problem, Facebook's going to let you know, or YouTube's going to let you know, and they'll probably mute part of your video. But no, you don't need to use a hashtag. Um, any value of using a wired microphone near the laptop? Do you mean like for external sound? Because I think a microphone adds value no matter what, right? So if you're streaming on Facebook or on your laptop or whatever, that if you have a microphone that amplifies your voice, it is going to be a better experience for people. Now, that being said, if you can get it to connect directly to your phone or your computer, like we talked about earlier, then it's going to be a better sound, absolutely. But yes, there is value of having a microphone versus not having a microphone always. And I say this from I have a master's degree in opera, and so people when one of my biggest pet peeves is when people are like, "Well, I have a loud voice, so it's fine. I'll be fine." And I'm like I literally have a degree in a version of singing that doesn't use microphones. So if anybody knows how to project, it's myself. But I also know that the kind of projecting that we're doing in fitness is not going to be healthily projected over an extended period of time. You will ruin your voice. Use a microphone. That's my soapbox. I need to get off that soapbox, but it has to do with technology too. So always use a microphone. There's always benefit in it. And yes, Power Music answered that too. No, so Laura, again, if you want to have a microphone, it is going to pick up your voice a little bit better. But with Zoom, I highly recommend getting that microphone connected to your computer. I think you said that you jumped on a little late, but all the video will be there. And I talked about a couple of ways to get that microphone to the computer through Zoom. But I highly, highly recommend getting your microphone to your computer if you're teaching through Zoom. It's going to make a thousand times better experience. And a lot of people swear by like audio settings in Zoom, and I've messed with those things a lot, and I think they make zero difference at all. I think the biggest difference is getting a microphone to your computer, which can be done very inexpensively, which we talked about it earlier in the video. Yay! Wonderful, Power. They said that you can talk to them about music licensing. Thanks, Power. You're making that easy on me. All right. Oh, hi. Any other questions, comments, happy thoughts? Yes? Okay, so I'll leave you with this. Know that, again, technology is hard. There is a learning curve for it. But I promise you, I have walked people through this who had zero technology experience and been able to get them to teach virtually successfully. So I promise you, if this is something you want to do and you answered that question that I talked about right at the beginning of the meeting, which is, yes, I am willing to invest some time and some space in this, then I promise you, you will be able to do it. And it doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg, or it can cost a lot of money if you need to do it very, very professionally. Again, I will link all the resources that I've used or I've talked about so far. And I know that there are other great resources out there too. And so if you want to discuss what some of those are, I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. My name is Lindsay Coleman. My handle is at the Fitness Performer. And I also, again, I run PicFit Pro. And so it's a fun world out there. I promise teaching virtually is very scary, but you can do it if you want to. And so, really, I should say that my sixth tip is you can do it. I promise. All right. Hey, Belinda, I'm seeing your question. If you have your headset on the laptop and you said you can't get the music to play for the entire track, um, I, are you sharing your music? Is this through Zoom? Are you sharing your music directly, or is this through Facebook? Because I will say that through Zoom, we did. If you're just jumping on, I did talk about earlier how you can share your music directly through Zoom to make it work and to have your headset. If you're doing it through Facebook and you're using an original artist, that could be because it's being blocked. Yeah. Da-da-da. Perfect. Thanks, Linda. I appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to jump off. If you have any other questions, comments, happy thoughts, make sure to tag me in your comments because I won't just see them if you don't tag me. Tag me in your comments. I will do my best to answer any questions that you have. If you have a very, very complicated technical question that is really personal for you, I highly recommend you check out PickFit Pro and you can look at the consultations there. All right, team, I will see you soon. Thank you, Power Music, for allowing me to jump on here and talk to you about this. And thanks to all of you who jumped on. I hope that some of these tips are going to be helpful and will allow you to feel more successful teaching virtually. See you later.